Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Nexty Talks, this podcast that is brought to you by Nexty Sports Management. This episode is special, our episode number 5. I have the honor to have you in my show. This friend of mine, mentor, colleague. The only problem that we have is that we don't see each other more
Yeah,
often.
that's true. That's a shame. You blame
I
it on the
have
pandemic.
I have Eli McKnight, and next to you talk basketball with him this evening. Eli, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How you doing, Leo?
I'm good. I'm good.
You one of
Eli,
my favorite people. I talk
you
about you all the
got
time.
listen. You got so many letters after your name these days that I cannot keep up. So let me try to briefly put it into words here. What this guy does. Eli is a fitness professional, former collegiate football player, a basketball coach, rehab specialist, corrective exercise specialist. This guy does everything that surrounds human body and human movement. And I think that's his calling. And we're going to talk a lot about that today and how he's using that experience to motivate and push youth athletes to their best. Not only regular clients, but kids that actually need that push, need that support. And I'm pretty sure that if you stick around here and stay with us to the end of this podcast, you're going to have valuable content to take to a player. If you're a player listening to this, you're going to have a lot of stuff to put it in your repertoire there. So let's get the ball rolling. You ready, Eli?
I'm ready, man. Let's go.
Cool. Let's start from the beginning, my friend. Where are you
Okay.
originally from? Oh, well, I know some of the stories, but not a whole lot.
All right. All right.
Uh, Take us through the beginning there, how you got started and how you developed, like as an athlete, and how your journey started with the sports.
All right. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. Basketball is a big deal. It's a big deal in Louisville, Kentucky. Big deal in Louisville, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Cincinnati, all those kind of places. So it's a big deal. And I was an only child. And I was kind of a bad kid. And so my mom needed to keep me busy. She kept me in everything. And my grandmother also, she worked for the parks department for Louisville Metro. So a lot of times I would find myself, because my mom was also a single parent. So while she was at work, I would find myself over the summertime spending spending time with my grandmother at work, where it was basketball courts and all that kind of stuff, just other kids to be around. And she was there after hours. And so I just kind of just kept moving, brother. And they just kept me in everything competitive. That's just kind of just what it was. Just kept me doing everything.
You ended up going through middle school, high school there. When did you start, because you transitioned, you played basketball, but then you transitioned a little bit to football. You
Yeah.
played football. So at what age you started to, I think I can do that. I have the athleticism. I have the coordination. Like can actually be something for me.
So there's a big tournament in Louisville called the Dirt Bowl. And it was, it was a huge tournament. We're talking about 24 years ago. Now, we lived in a different part of town, and I didn't understand that at the time, but they were driving me 30, 35 minutes away to go play with older kids, which terrified me, right? They were huge.
Mm.
Terrified me. They had me playing in a different city with older children
We're talking about
because
basketball.
we're talking about basketball right now, yeah. To put me out there because they thought I was good enough. And we didn't really have like coaches, but there'd always be somebody, my grandmother's coworkers that thought I was tall, thought I was this, that thought I was that, and they would put me in stuff. And I think I just grew up to be naturally big. Now, how I transitioned over into football was I just wanted to prove to my dad that I could do it. He was kind of like hot stuff in Louisville when it came to football, and I didn't think that the sport was that difficult. And I have a lot more respect for it than I did when I started. But I liked it though. And I stuck with that, walked on to Louisville football, was really only there for about a semester before my mom passed away. Then shortly thereafter, I moved down here to come to Atlanta, Georgia, to come play football for Georgia State for Bill Curry when he was first starting up his program. For a variety of reasons, that never even materialized. I never even stepped on campus really at Georgia State. But through my son, I got going back into basketball because he wasn't much for football. And I'll start there. That's what got me back into my original love and youth sports. And one more thing. As a child, I was an assistant coach for my mom's boyfriend when I was like 16 years old. That was like my first foray into coaching,
Got
and
it.
that was also basketball.
And that's a segue because I want to trace a good comparison, a good bridge between your youth experience as a basketball player and eventually football player, and what you see as the youth landscape right now. So you mentioned that back in the day, you say you didn't have much coaching or anything like that.
No, not
Um,
really.
so how was it then to develop a talent, or for example, an individual, a youth a player that had some potential, like yourself, that grew up to be fast, strong, but didn't have much guidance. So how was the pathway then? Like you'd have to go to these tournaments, you'd have to go to just be playing in front of the right people.
Yeah, so there is a lot more opportunities for exposure now because of social media. But for then, it was really you had one or two events per year, and you would really have to. You could almost look at everything you did as far as practice and this and that and the other would get you ready for some sort of a dress rehearsal for this one major event, right? And like for us, that was the Dirt Bowl at the time. But
Mm,
really, for me, without any sort of real guidance, I just that's what's cool about basketball. It's a really unique sport that if you even though it's a team sport, there's so many different individual skills that you can work on your stuff on your own. So I just stayed in the gym, dribbling all the time, waiting on my grandmother to get off work. If they didn't have a basketball, I dribble a soccer ball. I know you probably don't love that. If they didn't have a soccer ball, I dribble a kickball. I would dribble a hockey puck. I don't care. You sit back and you dribble, you play, and you just make it a game, and you never forget that it's a game, and just keep enjoying the fun of the game.
that's actually some things that make me think about. And one of the we know that for a fact now, of course, after studies and after sport became more of a scientific subject, that there's the genes and your natural ability to perform a given sport, but the environment that you inserted in makes or breaks an athlete, right? And I played basketball growing up. We've shot some hoops before, you and
Yeah,
I, right? A little
yeah, for
bit,
sure.
but I
And you're
want
tall. You're like 6'4" too.
and I didn't and I like, I'm not saying anything bad about my former coaches then, but we were in a different environment. We were in a universe of soccer, and the what we had, like I keep asking myself what type of basketball player would I have been if I had grown up in
Yeah,
the US.
you would have been pretty good, man. You're like a
uh,
Mono Ginobili kind of guy. Just like, nah,
right,
man, he doesn't look like he will. He'll kill you out here.
right. Mano was fun to watch,
Yeah,
despite the
for
fact of
sure.
being Argentinian.
Oh, that's fair.
Because like, yeah, like
Yeah,
he played a couple of Pan American games against Brazil and some. Gosh, it was good. How do you see the youth landscape now, though? Now that you inserted in as a, so you mentioned your son brought you back to the sport as a coach. That was the main motivation. Um, and how do you see things now, like the resources that players have, podcasts such as this one that generate
tremendous
content,
amount.
right?
Tremendous amount of stuff, man. I have six children. I have three boys and three girls, and I tell them
Nice.
all the time that they have the power of the internet and research is all in their hand. There's so much exposure, for everything, and honestly, eh, there's so much exposure that some of the kids can misunderstand um, what is what is social media content and what is development content. So they really have to make sure it is that they understand and that they see the difference, those two things. And that's what I really would say. There's almost like a word, like almost like misinformation for what it
Hmm.
kind of sort of would take, to get you there as a youth sport, youth athlete, and things like that. And you see so many things where it comes to the exciting moments and the highlights and all this other kind of stuff that they don't realize that there's very quiet, intricate work that it comes to get to that point that you never really see enough of. But interestingly
Or
enough, you can
some
see that
players,
too.
they only produce the content, they only produce the highlight and don't produce anything else in the court.
Yeah, that really is. And and I've said it a lot of times when I do film review with the kids. I'm like, we got a guy. We played against these guys. This kid took 9 shots. He made one. He only made one. And and I said, I promise you that one they put on the internet. I guarantee you they won't even worry about the other 8.
Yep, yep. Uh, we got all of that. Kids these days have access to all of this. But let's go back, and I remember like when we talked at length about Nexty sports management and how this project could look like, and we will have more to talk about it in the near future. And you gave me a masterclass on AAU basketball and the youth landscape, and I want us to go back to a few of those points.
Okay.
Let's say that you do not have any hiccup, right? Let's say that you are in your middle school basketball game and you're ready, displaying some level of excellence. What is the natural journey of a youth basketball player to arrive at an NBA draft?
That's a great question. I would talk the traditional route that most of us know,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll kind of segue that into a couple of the new routes it is that are happening, and those things are developing right here in Georgia. So as far as the traditional route for a person that gets to the NBA, normally speaking, they are like, for me, I coach at Hiram, so that kid would generally be in the city of Hiram. He'll probably play Hiram High School basketball. After he gets playing Hiram High School basketball around his sophomore to senior year, his high school coach will assist him in trying to find a college.
Okay.
Um, what a lot of people don't realize is that oftentimes high school coaches have relationships with certain college coaches because, as I'm sure is the same in soccer, you have certain types of players it is that you like to run your system through.
Sure.
And so if you develop the kids the way it is that I need them to be developed, then I will send them and they will come to and through you. So those things are already there. Um, that kid can go to the if a kid is going to the NBA for the most part at this point in time, we kind of know that by the time they're 17, 18.
Okay.
And then they'll generally speaking maybe have 2 years in college, 1 year in college, and then they'll head on off to the NBA draft, do their workouts and all that other kind of stuff. So that's the general traditional route. No more than about 2 years in college for a real professional prospect, because professional basketball players and college basketball players are different. The rules are different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, the newer routes, it's a little different. You have kids are skipping college entirely. The Australian basketball league, the professional basketball league in Australia, is a tough one to play in, and they are known for helping to develop kids, young adults, and even some older guys that may have had a year or two of college and need to get toughened up for real professional league rules to get them ready, and then they can come over and go through the NBA draft that way. And then you also have what's called overtime elite.
Mm-hmm.
An overtime elite is essentially that campus and school for really budding professional and collegiate basketball players. Because also at this point in time, if you're a collegiate player, you're a professional player. I mean, with name,
Mm-hmm.
image, and likeness, you're a professional player. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the facts. But that's generally what it is. And I feel like over the next 5 or 10 years, there will really be a real separation between the scholar athlete who is, I'm a high school player and I'm going to college and I plan on doing something that is not going to be NBA basketball, but I'm still a really good basketball player. And that kid can do his thing, play a couple years of play pro anywhere. There's a lot of just about every country's got a professional basketball league. And then come back and have a normal life. And you'll never know that this guy, because everybody's not LeBron James. So there's a
Sure.
lot of different ways it is that a person can go.
That's right. That's very interesting. Do you agree that we're having a smaller and smaller margin for let's call it the Cinderella story, like that player that is a D2, goes abroad, and comes back to an NBA spot? Because you mentioned, like, you already know that player, it's on a professional pathway at age, 17, 18. Can we still find those late bloomers, player that breaks through at 2021, or you seen this less and less happening these days?
That's a good question. As far as the infrequency of the Cinderella story, I think it's just as rare as what it was before. But I mean, right off the top of my head, I immediately think of John Morant, who's a very high. I mean, he's at this point in time, John Morant's an MVP candidate, and he went from being an absolute unknown commodity to people saying, "Who the heck is this?" And finding himself, I believe, as a third overall draft pick. And at no point in time was his trajectory trending in that direction. And another good current example I can think of would also be Jimmy Butler. And these are current NBA All Stars. I would call John Morant a current NBA MVP candidate. So but I will say that it may even be easier to find these type of guys because of the amount of opportunities it is that they can get to play against other notable professionals. So
Hmm.
I actually don't think that it's getting more rare. I don't think so.
Yeah. You mentioned Jamaran, and I provoked like outrages in my friends group chat the other day because I told them that when I watched Ronaldinho Gaúcho play back in 2003, 2004 in Barcelona, and he was a freaking magician, and the ball was going to get to him, and he would make something together. We're talking about soccer at this time.
Yeah.
I have the same emotional memory watching Jamaran. For me, he's the most fun player that I've ever seen in the past, I want to say like 15 years. Like
He's
he's
just
a
crazy. He's wild
he,
with the ball.
it's incredible. Like athleticism off the chart, intelligence, flair, like everything that and effectiveness. Like that's the most for me. That's the most important. Like if he wants to take the game by storm, he will.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, over a summer, it just kind of just changed. You put it all together, I guess you could say. And then once you find that in you and you know that you can do it, and then other people believe you can do it, then all of a sudden, well, hey, it can. It can be
That
done.
that's the push. Uh, how did the development NBA D League, the development league, plays a part now in the youth ecosystem? Like, how do you have to have a professional contract and then they bump you down, or can you go through the developmental league and then go up?
Honestly, I'm really disappointed in myself. When you talked about alternate routes, I didn't even think of the G League.
Yes, G League,
Because
correct.
personally, I kind of just treat it as if you're a G League player in the NBA, to me, you're just an NBA player. This is it.
Mm,
One of the things it is that professional sports in America does not have that I feel like is great in other countries is they have levels to their league,
correct.
so that you can have the same sort of professional access, even though you're not the millionaire player
Hmm.
or gazillionaire player. Because in soccer they just give these guys just country GDP contracts. Are crazy. I wish I knew how to kick a soccer ball. and and so over in the what I like about the G League is that on a youth level development, it shows at the highest level there is still a developmental side of things. Because if you children and their parents are always worried about, is my son on the varsity team? Does he start on the varsity team? Does he get the most amount of minutes on the varsity team? Whatever, right? And I deal with the same thing with my stuff, where because I have levels to my teams.
Hmm.
But it's like, if you, let's take somebody like you, for example. If somebody brought you into me at 13 years old and you were already 6'1", I'm like, well, okay, well, what does he know how to do? It's like, well, he played soccer. He played a lot of soccer. I said, okay, well, his footwork would be great. He doesn't know what to do with basketball, but he knows what to do with the space of a court. So we'll work with the spacing that he has while we develop his skills. And
Hmm.
that's what happens with stuff like the G League. A lot of these kids, they're raw. They have all the athleticism in the world. They don't know the free throw line from the 3-point line, from the sideline, out of bounds line, and you have to teach them these things without the pressure of 20,000 people around. So we can do the exact same thing on a youth side of things. And now as a child, you can look and I can give them an example and I can say, this kid, Jordan Clarkson, is a good example from the Golden State Warriors, who's got something
Mm-hmm.
obscene, like a $173 million contract. But he was in the G League first. He was in the G League first, where he learned the confidence to take those shots and to be that type of player against high level competition. And if you show somebody an example like that, then it's like you can't tell me, that there's like these guys do it on this level, so there's no reason why you can't.
Okay, it makes a lot of sense. Uh, European clubs, we have a lot of talent coming to the United States from Luka Doncic, Nikola Jovic, all of those guys coming into play here, and not only coming here to play, but dominating the league, balling. Um, do we see some of you mentioned the Australian League as a, let's say, as an alternative route? Do Are we seeing an increase of now U.S. exporting American players to play for Real Madrid in Spain, to play for Barcelona, those social clubs that have, of course, the big brands as professional soccer teams, but also have very competitive um, sports, other modalities underneath that umbrella.
Yes, absolutely. And the influx of Americans has always been a thing going over to these other leagues, so much so that you're limited to how many Americans that you can have on a roster at any given time.
Mm,
So, and I'm not going to get into the rules of the differences because I don't know, but generally speaking, there's no more than like two or three, depending on which league it is that you play in. Because when you have somebody like Luca and Jokic come over here, they really are the perfect quintessential basketball players. Not worried about being too muscular, exerting themselves too hard. No highlight reel dunks. They have games that will last for 20 years because
hmm
that's what you want, right? And and there's a lot of those guys over there. And then you send some of these guys over here who give you the high flying dunks and things like that that they don't have over there. So then you get a complete product on each
hmm
side. But you don't want too many guys like that because
And
then
I'm
it's not your
assuming
country's game.
there's an international limitation within the NBA too, right?
And not as far as I've heard, no.
Hmm.
Mm-mm. I
Interesting.
mean, you take teams like the San Antonio Spurs at times have almost been all international players. I have never ever seen any limit or heard of any limit on international players in the
Yeah, we're
NBA.
talking about Manu Ginobili here. Back in those that back in that day, Manu Ginobili, Argentinian,
Uh huh.
uh,
Tony
uh,
Parker,
Tony Parker, French. Um, we had big Brazilian player
Splitter.
Thiago Splitter as a center.
Yeah. Uh
Yep.
huh. Uh huh.
They had Luis Scola, the other Argentinian in the
As a
bench that he would
forward,
come in.
right? That's
Yep, as a
true.
forward.
And then people
Um,
forget people forget that certain guys like Steve Nash is Canadian.
right. Yeah, that's right.
Jamal Murray, who plays for the Denver Nuggets right now, is Canadian.
Yep.
A lot of people. Yeah, I really don't think there's any sort of limitation on international players in the NBA. No.
Interesting. And we kept that group there with Tim Duncan, just an average player that they had there at some point.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Uh huh. Uh huh.
uh, so tell me a little bit about how you started with the Warriors project. Tell us a little bit of what that was. I know it has, like you already mentioned, your son was a big motivation for it. Um, and tell us like what the program is consisted. Where do you guys run your practices? How is the structure? How is everything in there?
Okay, it's great. So the West Cobb Warriors, I got my first foray in the AAU coaching about 4 years ago, and I was working for a different organization. And after two things happened, I had a meeting with the ownership of the organization, and he just had a comment about finances, and I thought, I was like, we're bringing in a lot of money, but I don't really see it going back to the kids, and I didn't know how I felt about that because I was doing things like buying my own equipment, and I kind of felt like he was living a good life, taking vacation in Hawaii with the fees. But in any event, I wasn't upset with him about it. It just made me think about what I was doing. But the major thing that happened was that there was a young man, and his name was Landon Andrews, and unfortunately he was killed in a house party. He wasn't involved in anything. there was some wayward shooting. Someone shot inside the home, and he was hit, and somebody else was hit as an unintended target. What I hate about that is that Landon was a little bit older than my son at the time. My son played basketball with him. My son is 2 years younger than Landon. He played basketball with him because, my son was good enough to kind of play a little bit up. And that's how I met Coach Landon. And Landon stayed around as a family friend and stuff like that, for a few years after that. And there wasn't cost associated with being a part of the program that I was in and his age. There wasn't a place for him, in the program at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And about 2-3 days before his passing, I reached out to his mom to invite him to come to a workout, to have him come in and hang out. And I never got a response to that text message. And the next message I received from her was, that he had been killed about a day or two after it happened. And I really just wanted to, make, an inclusive program that, could get kids, in the program, talented or not, who were just willing to work, and their parents were willing to get them there. And we didn't have to, worry too much about, lose our mind about cost and things like that. So, I mean, that's kind of what it is. It's a labor of love. I don't really cut players. I don't do tryouts. You're playing for me or you don't. And we base most of our operations out of Hiram and out of like West Marietta in that area. Yep. And, this year I've established, a relationship with, because Hiram doesn't really have a middle school development for the kids within the city, but they have a really good, their Coach Boyd was a great basketball player in Marietta, and he knows what's missing. And so we're kind of bridging the gap between those two things for these Hiram kids to have a competitive program to be at a very low cost for them, in addition to the children that I already have from Ackworth and Marietta. So we got, 45, 50 kids right now.
Wow.
Yeah, we got, 3 different teams. I coach 2 of them, and then I leave, space open for kids who aren't necessarily ready to play AU basketball. Mm-hmm. They still can come in to certain workouts and do team and group training. And, we prep them and get them, together. And I think one of the proudest things I'm happy of, one of my happiest moments recently is, we're only a year within our program, but, of the 30 kids that we had last year, we had 18 of them make their programs, their basketball programs for their schools, and 7 of them weren't. It was their first year playing basketball with us. So I really think we do a really good job of developing here with us.
That's awesome. Do you guys currently offer the program for girls as well, or is it still just boys and girls will come in a different?
I'm glad you asked that. I'm working on that right now. So a lot of this stuff goes through my kids' interest. My son Cameron is a great basketball player, and my daughter Summer is 9. She's on her way up. You just don't get as much consistent interest and commitment from girls until you get a little closer to middle school. But we will be doing a girls basketball camp over at the Kennesaw Recreation Center in the spring, because I did coach. I have coached girls before, and actually the first youth championship I ever won was with 4th and 5th grade girls. Yeah, so I'm still in touch with some of those some of those parents, and they still want to do some work with us. So over in Kennesaw in about a month or so, we'll be doing a free camp for girls, elementary and middle school basketball players.
Yeah, I love having the opportunity to coach girls in soccer as well. Like it's a different, it's a different way that like it pushes you in a different way. Like I think
they hugged me before every game.
Yeah.
They would run up to me and they would hug me in a circle, and I was just like, I don't want to lose. I don't want to let y'all down. Y'all are angels.
It's just so sweet and makes their questions are more elaborated than the boys. They're
right.
They push you to be the best version of coach that you can be.
Yeah, no, they really did. They really do. Yep.
Love that. And how does the season work in correlation to the school season? So
that's a great question.
School season, when does it happen in the state of Georgia?
Great question. So the basketball school season is truly a winter sport, and the actual school basketball season does not start until right around Halloween, and then it's done around Valentine's Day. So it's really about half of October, all of November, December, January, and then playoffs are in February. So I just finished my regular season. I'm literally waiting to see who my playoff opponent is for this weekend.
Awesome. That's great to know, guys. If parents, we have a lot of parents that listen to us,
Okay.
looking for guidance, and we talked about a few things here. You mentioned some collegiate athletes having name, image, and likeness contracts. If you guys want more information on that, just go back one episode with Kay Porter, our international sports lawyer, that she just gave us another masterclass on how all of that works. And I was actually looking back in a reading an article a couple days ago, and what's his name? Hensel, the basketball player that has one arm amputated. Hensel.
Yeah, Emmanuel Hansel.
Emmanuel
Hansel.
Emmanuel Hansel. That is correct. I think he's one of the top five. And I
with one hand
in the United States right now.
With one hand.
What a talent! What
right.
an example of determination and hard work there. That kid is that's one that the highlight reel does not pay homage. It's not doesn't give justice to the level of effort that he puts in.
You know which way he's going, and you still can't stop him. I know he's not going to switch hands. I can't stop him. And I've watched it on film. I was like, I don't even know how you stop this move.
You mentioned a lot of your son and his ability, and I know you, and we've talked about this before. I want you to take the coach hat out and put the dad hat on.
Okay.
What's the best for your kid?
All right.
And take us through what you are planning for his career to give him a shot, and we know that is that smaller than 1% chance if it doesn't work out. What is the best alternative outcome that we can find?
This is a great question, and this is what I prep him for, right? So what I've always told him is that your height doesn't necessarily project you to be a professional athlete as we define it in America. But to be a pro, all it means is somebody cuts you a check to do something. And I have friends, many friends, who've played in France, played in Germany. Nobody would do it now, but Russia. And they have taken their time, had 10 or 12-year career, only working 3 months out of the year because the international season is very different than the NBA season, just in case you want an NBA player to be available who was working internationally and made a much better living playing with a ball, right? So the only thing it is that I want for Cameron is to have the power to choose. So if he can find himself doing nothing else other than being able to, unlike his father, go to school entirely for free. And, he understands even right now, like he knows how to do a proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation stretch right now. He's 14. And, and then I've had him help me out as a coach, coaching his younger sister and coaching younger kids. And he's already learned a little bit of the craft of training. I'm like, my friend, I came to this city as an unknown, as a foreigner from Georgia, and I have established myself here without the history of being known just because I was good at my craft. And you can do the exact same thing while having the name and background behind it. So, I don't think that it is too early to prepare your children to be in the profession that they love. And there's a lot of ways to do that. It doesn't mean that you're going to catch a pass from LeBron James, but there's a lot of ways to do that. And I just try to make sure it is that he understands that if you love basketball, it doesn't mean it's NBA or bust.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's the only thing
Or
it is that
NBA
I,
player or bust. He can be
yeah, and that's what I
assistant coach.
mean.
He can be
Like,
a coach. He can be.
right. If the only thing it is that I was like, no, I can't be a coach unless I'm an NBA coach, then there would be so many young men and women who weren't getting this high level of professional training that I'm able to bring to them. That's what I'm
Correct.
passionate about. And I'm
Correct.
still doing the thing it is that I love. I still hear the sound of squeaky shoes on a basketball court. It's perfect. So to those parents out there, you have to make sure it is that you don't find yourself narrow-minded and put the blinders on to say that if you're not a professional athlete, there's just no reason for you to do this, because
Mm-hmm.
that's just not true.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not true.
I mean, this day and age, and that's another topic that Kate actually pointed. She had an experience as a high schooler to be ball girl for the Washington Wizards during
Oh, that's
Michael
cool.
Jordan's time.
That's even cooler.
Yeah, right. So she was sharing with us that through that experience, she was able to see how many people, how many skill sets, how many capabilities, how many minds are in putting together a basketball game.
Yeah,
From marketing to people that sell the tickets, from the corporate executives that go to the VIP boxes,
there are
the
people who are important to basketball that don't sweat.
right, and the musicians, the entertainers, the people that set up the lights. So, like, if you want to be involved in the sport industry and you shoot your shot as an athlete and for some reason doesn't work out, we have so many barriers that can help, that can happen. You can still be a part of it in a different capacity. It's just really finding that, being true to what you like and what you're good at it, because normally you like stuff that you're good at. I think Mark Cuban says
Yeah,
that you don't quit stuff that you're good at, even if it's not
yeah.
your passion.
And you know what? And it's one of those things. There are, in particular, two guys. I don't know his real name, but his stage name, Lethal Shooter, and
Hmm.
it's like yeah, right. It's like a clown show how well he can shoot. Some of the stuff it is that he
Yeah.
does. But I remember him when he had like 500 followers, and before I think his first, I want to say it was Hassan Whiteside from the Miami Heat was his
Hmm.
first like client, who was a big time notable player because of who he played for and who his teammates were. But he's no one that anyone's going to remember in the history of basketball.
Correct.
Yet still, his training with Hassan and the improvement of Hassan led to all these other things. And this is a guy who you wouldn't know him if you didn't know him. And another one is Chris Brinkley, who actually he and I both went to the University of Louisville. And I don't really know if Chris Brinkley averaged more than 8 or 9 minutes per game. But he's one of the most notable NBA trainers working at the Lifetime Sky up in New York,
Hmm.
where they have exclusive NBA runs for
Yep.
the like. There's so many things it is that a person can do, and even one more really good example. Like for my organization, we try to release like NBA quality type highlights, really show their kids looking just real cool with a camcorder. And my son does all that camera work. He's like the most popular person in my program because everybody knows he's the cameraman. Everybody knows my oldest son is the cameraman.
There you
And
go.
he doesn't play team sports anymore. But he is right there because he's 16. He's right there capturing the moments. And this has led to him being able to shoot a little news segment for his high school and all other kind of stuff because they've seen him do this camera work before. So it's not a one track thing.
Agreed. Agreed. Full on. Uh, for for a player to, because you mentioned a little bit of a scholarship in college. Um, just from a soccer perspective, right? Like, you have a different set of rules, um, and it varies from school to school. You have scholarships that are given uh, for academics, and you have scholarships that are given solely from your athletic abilities. If you're able to grab a little more money on the academic side, your coach has more room to spend some extra money that you got it from a different route now to compose his roster in that with he would give more money to an athletic player that quite doesn't have the grades or the academic scholarship.
Yeah.
Does it work similarly with the basketball roster? So when you're pursuing, because I believe your number one goal for Cameroon right now is to try to get that that full scholarship, preferably a D1, right?
Hmm.
And so, how much the academics play a part in that project?
Big portion, right? I got 2 master's degrees. It's a huge portion, and
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things, because I told him before. I'm like, if your academic side is right, it makes it so much easier for them to take you.
Mm-hmm.
So much easier because you can split it up 25, 35, 45, 55 because they have a set amount of money for every single year, and you got to re-sign that contract, and it's going to be whatever percentage. So yes, and I tell my kids, I was like, we're scholar athletes. I was like, because one of the things that's cool about the group is that I coach is, well, I got a couple of big boys, but I don't have anybody that's 6'8" or 9. Somebody who's like, whoa, this is an
Mm-hmm.
obvious professional prospect. So all of these guys, you're scratching and clawing for what it is that you could possibly get, because you will be the ones that could be overlooked. You
Mm-hmm.
will be the ones that could be overlooked because people might not necessarily be coming to see you. They'll be coming to see your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So now show them how well you play against your opponent. And then I look at that kid and I say, man, Leo's a great player. I need a guy like this guy to come in and help push Leo. And it'll be a whole lot easier if I can bring this kid in who's not quite there, because he'll be around for 4 years while Leo will only be around for 1 or 2. He gets his academics, make it easy for us to take him in. And then when Leo's gone, we can give him his scholarship because Leo's not going to use it for the rest of the time he's here.
Mm-hmm. It all plays a part when the coaches and the assistant coaches, athletic directors at schools are putting their rosters together, essentially putting their programs
It's a
together.
business, and we're all business assets.
Yeah, I agree. Agreed. Uh, Normally, how many players do a D1 program carries in their roster?
15, and then a lot of times you might have, and I want to say that of those 15, you'll have 12 or 13 that are scholarship players, and then you might have 2 that are gray shirt, red shirt, paying their way, and then you might have 3 more who you don't even know their name. They're on the roster. They'll never play. They probably never will play,
Hmm.
but they're there for practice and have bodies and have potential backups and a pull in. But out of your scholarship players, you're looking at about 12 to 13.
Any hot commodity in terms of position these days? The US produces so many players, but like you in soccer, you see a big uh, a big gap in, in production. Let's put this way of fullbacks, like right fullback, left fullback.
Okay.
Is there a particular basketball position that we see that is it's transitioning, and then the new requirements of like like your centers are extremely skilled these days.
Yeah.
Embiid, like Giannis is. I mean, he shoots three like from logos these days. Like, it's
Yeah.
unbelievable. What is the biggest shift within the sport in relation to positions that you're seeing right now?
I mean, honestly, it's really just what you just said. The biggest shift in position is tall men with skill. When I grew up playing basketball, the tall guy wasn't allowed to dribble the ball. It's like
Hmm.
you find a small person and you pass it to him. So everyone has to be very, very highly skilled. And we have a saying that we say positionless basketball. It's just like you said, some people it's obvious what position it is that they play, but what position is Giannis? If Brooke Lopez is on the court, well, Giannis isn't the center.
Hmm.
If Bobby Portis is on the court and Brooke Lopez is on the court, well, Giannis isn't the power forward, is he? Is he the 3? Is he the 2? Because he can
He's
dribble the
out there.
ball. Yeah, he's just out there. So that's the biggest thing. If you're, tall people that can dribble, tall people that can shoot, because the taller you are, I can get my shot off over your head and you can't block it.
Hmm. Hmm. Got the impact of Durant in the game. Nobody can guard the man. He shoots so
No,
very far.
he is unguardable. He's gonna miss. He's going to miss because he missed. It's not, and all you can
You
do
made
is
him miss.
it's a percentage game. The only thing I can do is try to increase the likelihood that he will miss.
Yeah, yeah. But what is exciting you in this season of the NBA? What are you looking for the next? Like, of course, we have the All Star breaks, playoffs are set up. Like, what are you predicting this NBA season to go?
Well, to kind of answer your first question, what's exciting me about this NBA season? Who's the favorite to win the title?
No one knows.
You really don't. You don't really have one,
No,
right? Who's
no,
the favorite?
no one knows.
Um,
Every week you see somebody like,
you see
it might
somebody
be,
different,
it might be.
right? And that's the most exciting thing. Now, as far as my prediction, I really think that, and while the NBA Finals isn't the most important thing, that's the major thing. I feel like Boston is ready. I think
Mm,
that a combination of Al Horford has just extended his career out in a way I couldn't have imagined. He
right.
hasn't won an NBA championship, but he's a collegiate champion. They made it to the NBA Finals. They have improved without Ime Udoka, and which, in my opinion, means that the NBA players are policing and coaching themselves
Mm-hmm.
straight up.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that they are. And I know that Memphis will probably be. I can see Memphis getting out of the West,
Yeah,
but I don't. I'm gonna give it to Denver. So I'm picking Denver and Boston, with it going to Boston this year.
that's that'll be fun.
That'll be
That'll be
fun.
fun to watch.
Yeah.
That'll be fun to watch. Going back to the youth sports, and I want to, before we wrap up, I want us to touch on two pillars of a player development that I think is worth talking and mentioning. Um, when do you think a player should start taking care of, and that's a general question. I think, of course, you always have to take care of your body. It's your main asset, is your main company. But we see a lot of parents that put a lot of money on one-on-one training for fitness trainers. um, when do you think, based on your experience and your academic formation, when do you think is ideal for a player to look for something extra, like an extra strength routine, um, prevention, mobility? Like, when do you think the specific fitness portion of the sport, that playing the game itself is no longer enough to get you ready, if that makes sense? Because,
It does.
yeah, like,
It makes
you know,
sense.
like, starting as a kid, just playing the game, even for fun, will get you ready. But at what point you start seeing that you need that extra push?
That's a great question. I think the extra push is always there. You just change the structure. And if okay, when children are between, let's say, if a kid starts a sport at 5 or 6, I would say between the ages of 5 and 9, 5 and 10, the only thing that really matters to them, they're clumsy. You work on the
Hmm.
footwork. So, and it doesn't have to be, to the parents out there, it starts with you, right? You get an agility. You know this as personal trainers, former personal trainers, that parents come in, they talk about wanting to be able to keep up with their kids. So
Hmm.
it starts with them. You get them something simple, agility ladders, speed hurdles and stuff like that. So they just learn how to dance without falling, right? So they just learn how to move their body in multiple directions without falling. I don't think that any child needs specialized training for basketball until they are in middle school. As a basketball coach, let me tell you something. I don't care that your 8-year old can shoot. I don't. I don't care. I don't care. I want them to show energy and intensity and decision making on the court, not stand there and hit an open shot. That matters to me way less than what a lot of parents think. It's impressive. It's cool, but
Hmm.
as a coach, I know how to stop your 8-year old from getting a shot off in the first place. So I don't care about that. And then, like I was saying earlier, it's just dribbling and just playing, you know. So really specialized, true instruction, 12, 13, where you're like, hey, We're really, really serious about this. We really want him to compete. We need a little bit of professional help. And then when that happens, even still, it should be structured. We're going to work 1 month on his shooting and his shot release. We're going to work 1 month on his dribbling and decision making, whether he passes or he goes to the basket for a layup. It's all up here, and it's that mental stuff, and that's really what these guys need to focus on. When they're working on that. So the body development is great, and that is important, and those things kind of just come. But like, there's a lot of skill training out there for kids that is one-on-one, when I really think it should be more small group, because it is still a team sport, and they just don't need that much individual attention that early.
Just a perfect segue for my next pillar of a collective sport that I wanted to touch upon is the psychological and the psychosocial piece of it. I want to ask you two specific questions. One, how do you see the impact of pandemic and kids at young age that needed to be separated and needed to be apart for their formative years, their formative, social years, and now they're back into a collective sport environment. And the following up question is like, what do you set up for Cameron as his mental preparation? So let's go for
Okay.
the first one.
Okay. So I can see it from two ways. I didn't really stop. We were careful with basketball coaching, and we delayed and held off things and all this other kind of stuff. And there was all sorts of rules. But at most, we took a 60-day break, and it didn't change a whole lot for us during the pandemic. So for a lot of our kids in that summer and the spring and the summer of that year, once things kind of settled down and we knew a little bit better about what we were dealing with, I felt like that was their reprieve, their return to a little bit of normalcy, because of everything else that was going on. And I feel as though that those children that were a little bit involved in their group activities and youth sports didn't have the slip off and some social skills it is that other kids are getting. And I'll use my daughter as a perfect example, who is a 5'7", 12-year-old, great athlete, plays volleyball now and is really good at it. But it took a year because she was all virtual school and she wasn't in sports or anything, just for her to remove herself out of her shell a little bit, about getting back around people that she wasn't familiar with.
Okay. For Cameron and for your daughter and for what advice do you give for your own kids and for kids out there in terms of mental preparation and the discipline that it takes to excel as a youth athlete?
Don't expect what you didn't practice. So if I give any of my kids any advice, you have to expect what you practiced. This year was really unique for me because I am not coaching my son for school ball because they already had a coach for his age group, and I'm coaching the team below. So I've got to just watch him as a dad, and it's gotten me to see things in a different way. So like they play him a little different than I would, and they have him shoot a lot of 3-pointers. And he had a game where I think he took three 3-pointers and he missed all three. And I asked him after the game was over. He was upset about that. He had a good game otherwise, but he was upset about that. And I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. How many 3-pointers did you take in warm-ups today?" And he said, "I didn't take any." I said, "So your coach didn't have you take any, and you didn't take any. But then when the game started, you just boom, you just had it. You just gonna turn it on and just hit, huh?" And he's like, "No, I guess not." I said, "You can't make your first 3-pointer be under the pressure of the game." I said, "So if you're going to take threes, then you got to practice them, and you got to practice them beforehand to make sure that you got your touch right and all this other kind of stuff." So that's my like, don't. And then the second piece of advice to that is, parents, players, practice is for mistakes. Like you are gonna you're gonna try to make a layup and it's gonna hit the side of the backboard in practice. And I tell them that's great. Like if we didn't do something that looked a little bit wild, like because it's basketball, just like all sports, is a series of random things that we're just trying to control. So we control what it is that we can control. We go in here, we practice this nonsense. It doesn't work out. We made a mistake, and then we get in the game, and we're like, "Oh my God, I can do it." I was like, "That's because you've been practicing it, right?" And so, just parents, have your kids practice those things that you want them to be successful at, and have them watch more basketball and more of their sport. I see so many. If there were more kids who knew how many professional basketball players airball 3-pointers, airball layups, dribble the ball off their foot, fall out of bounds on their parents, like this, it happens all the time. They wouldn't feel so bad. And parents, you would also see that all of us look like we're 11-year-olds and we don't know what we're doing at some point in time. Even LeBron James. All of us. Just we all have to watch more of the professionals do what they do.
My almost 2-year-old son threw the same level of a tantrum as LeBron threw that last game. It was a foul, though. He was right.
It was a foul. He turned into a 3-year-old, didn't he?
Right?
Yeah. He was Donkey Kong on the floor.
It looked hilarious. It's just like, dude, come on. Like, you acting like my 2-year-old son.
He lost it. He was correct. He lost it.
Speaking about LeBron, greatest player of all time.
Absolutely. And we can't, and everybody needs to stop. We diminish legacies by worrying about who. I don't care if LeBron would beat Michael Jordan. That's irrelevant. He's the greatest player of his era, so he's the greatest player of his time, so he is the greatest player of all time, because he can only be the greatest player of his time.
His own time.
Period. That's it. And you can say the same thing about Michael Jordan. You can say it about Bill Russell. You can say it about Magic Johnson. You can say it about Wilt Chamberlain. And maybe that time was only 3 to 5 years, or maybe it was 15. But he is a GOAT.
Nice. I like that. I like that analogy. He's something else. Nobody. It needs a very special individuals who perform at that level, at that age, for so long.
Yeah. And it's makes it look routine, and that's what people don't. They don't. I'm watching, to prove I'm watching them right now. I'm watching them against New York, because I watch basketball every night. Everybody,
like you should do there, kids.
You should.
And all the sports that you love.
Whatever you take an interest in, you absorb it.
Biggest memory you had as a player?
So my favorite thing about playing basketball as a kid was my mother's smile, right? And my mom passed away January 23rd, 2007. And I can remember playing at St. Stephen's Baptist Church, where I played against Rajon Rondo, of all people. Cool. Now, I'm not going to lie on this story and act like this happened against him. He probably wasn't even on the court. But I just want everybody to know he was in the league, and he was cooking us then. He was right there. And I was a taller kid on the team, and my coach, he didn't want me to take 3-pointers, and he didn't want me to dribble the ball up. But I was practicing both of those things. And there was this kid, his name was Cedric. He could just jump out of the gym. And I went and dribbled the ball to the corner, and I took a corner 3-pointer, which I know I wasn't supposed to do, but I didn't care because I felt like I could hit it. I hit the shot. Cedric fouled me. I fell down right by my mother's feet. And she was jumping up and down. She was so happy. And I got up and I looked at my coach and I nodded and I hit the free throw too. And that was the one and only time that I've had a 4-point play. And then I'll give you one more. After so many years off from not playing organized basketball, I made the wild decision to play in the Lifetime Ultimate Hoops League.
That was intense.
Dude,
that was intense.
Leo, my first play, there was a dude from Auburn, because I looked him up after the game, because he back door like yammed it like right behind me, and I was like, oh my god, he was up there, and I said I had to really step it up and get serious because I was like, this is not pickup basketball. I had to step it up. I figured it out, and in the fourth game, I was playing with Justin, and we were losing 71-72. And this guy Q passed me the ball. I think I got the security camera footage. I hit a 3-pointer in front of Chris, who played basketball overseas in Germany and was talking trash the whole game. Knocked that bad boy down right in front of his face for the game winner. So I was happy to see that I could still do it as an adult, and my ability matched what I remembered as a child.
There we go. That muscle memory it stays with you. You mentioned Lifetime, and like I just wanted to wrap up with a little bit of my own story, and you play a big part of it. Back in 2012, I came here to the U.S. for my second year as a soccer coach, and I stayed in a host family. Yeah, they're my close family to us until now, and they were lifetime members. The health club, and I walked up into that gym, and I'm like, I'm gonna work here one day. And back in Brazil, I had my personal training clients, and I would do soccer in the evenings. And I just walked up that. What was like that place was like $65 million, something like that, with everything in it, building equipments. Like it was the
60 million and 120,000 square feet.
I had never seen a gym or a health club like that, and I'm like, I'm gonna work here one day. And you fast forward 2.5 years, I was eligible to work here in the United States. I was the only resume that I printed in, the only place that I actually knocked at a door, and I was able to get a job there. And you're my very first boss here in the United States. And with the broken English and just understanding this entire universe, you mentored me, you helped me out, you believed in somebody uh, coming from a completely different place, and for situations like this, that you're so successful, and your kids will be so successful, and you're making your impact in this journey here, my friend. Appreciate you very much.
Leo, let me tell you something. You, you, you are the reason. Everything, your passion for those kids and for soccer. I swear, I was like, does he even want a regular client? And I sat there and I watched everything it is that you did, and you really, like, you really showed me how to have like a passion for youth sports and for coaching and for development that I did not have before I met you. And so if I did anything for you, just understand and know that you are a big part of the reason me watching you and learning from you, even as your manager, and it's helped me to this day.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you. And essentially, this is what we want to bring as content in this show here. It's how like your actions, your determination, your willingness to do good things and to work in your craft can generate meaningful relationships that go beyond the court, beyond the soccer pitch, beyond the volleyball court. Because ultimately, that's what matters most.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. It's good to talk to you, man. It's good to just know you as a person, brother. I really appreciate
Likewise,
you.
likewise. I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much, Eli, for your time here with us. I'm sure that like I'm gonna send you everything. I want you to put the kids to listen to the show, the parents. I want to make sure that this is the
Absolutely.
most successful show that we got, because there's so much valuable advice here that folks should be listening to. And if you gain anything off this conversation, please leave us a like, a comment. Every type of engagement help us out very, very much. Uh, where can we find you? Like, where can you find the Warriors Hiram High School? Like, um, Instagram handles, hashtag, emails. Like,
Yeah,
how can
sure,
I find
sure.
you?
So you can find pretty much all of my content at on Instagram at I am. a powerhouse. All one word.
Nice.
I am a powerhouse. And then our team is the West Cobb Warriors. You can see us on westcobbwarriors.com. And also you can find us at West Cobb Warriors on Instagram. I got a TikTok page out there somewhere. There's nothing on it. But, I just, we make really fun, crazy stuff. I love making videos and little mixtapes and things like that for my kids on my team. So yeah, it's where you can see all of our content at.
And I'll make sure that I leave all the handles and everything here in the comment section, in the description of the video. If you're seeing us on YouTube, if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify, just go to the description and you see everything in there as well. All right, I think that's a wrap.
Like Christmas
gifts. You come back for more, though. You come back for more. Like, I want us to do some crazy stuff. Like, I don't know, like watch a game like live and comment on it. Like, some stuff.
Man, I would do all type of nonsense like that. It can be any sport level. And look, and I got some stuff.
Watch the Hawks too.
I'm with that.
Been in literally 5 years.
No, it has been a while. Yeah, I still got that photo. And I got, the next time I talk to you too, because of the site director stuff it is, and I'll have even more nonsense to say that we didn't even get into because I haven't done enough of it yet.
Like, I want us to go back and talk more about, agents, and, like NIL and the professional ins and out, and how how professional players are impacting those kids these days. So there's so many other topics here that we still need to touch.
I'll sit here and look at you and talk all day. You come up with the series and the topics, and we'll just we'll just chit chat till my wife tells me to get off the phone.
That sounds like a plan. Eli,
all right, man.
Have a great night, my friend. I appreciate you very much. Follow Nexty Talks, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you catch this episode. We'll be waiting for your comment, your like in here. Okay? Thank you so much.
Warriors.
Let's go.
Bye, Leo.